There wasn't really a motivation for money as much as there was a motivation to not fail. So as we grew, I just wanted to make the right decisions not to fail. I knew the chances of failing were way higher than the chances of succeeding to even get to my goal. And people don't believe it, but I never really counted the dollars. It was 5-star reviews. It was how many jobs did we do? Is anybody calling that's upset? I was more driven by that than I was by the dollars.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Build to Win podcast, where we discuss tools and tech for the smart contractor. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jonathan Weinberg. I am the founder and CEO of Builder Prime, the home improvement industry's most comprehensive and intuitive all-in-one business management platform for CRM, marketing automation, text messaging, estimating, production, invoicing, payments, reporting, and much more. I'm here, as always, with your other co-host, John Kolbaska. John is the owner and visionary of Windows and Doors by the Men with Tools. John built this extraordinary profitable home improvement company from the ground up. They provide worry-proof windows and doors for your home with the best warranty in the business. We've got an incredible guest for everybody today, John O'Leary. John was the owner of O'Leary Roofing out in northeastern Pennsylvania. And John had a very successful exit of the business in March of last year. So really excited to talk with John today and gain tons of wisdom from his experience. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
So, John, we'd love to see just, get started we got 3 Johns today. So we're going to try and go by last names. O'Leary, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of a background, your story, maybe the 2 to 5 minute version of, how you got started and where you ended up.
Sure. So like a lot of installers in the world, I started working with my dad when I was very young. Learned the industry. He had a building business that wasn't doing well in the 70s going into the 80s. So he started doing siding and windows and doors and stuff. And I ended up as his helper. Pushed the clock ahead to graduation of high school, 1984. That actual day, I registered my trade name with the county and started John D. O'Leary Siding Contractor and did new construction vinyl siding, windows and doors, remodeling for many years. Wore my body out as an installer. Winter of 2017, I decided that I needed to put the tool belt down and try something else. And I was watching some of these other contractors around and seeing what they were doing and decided that I was going to give it a shot. I had a great roofing crew. So we focused on roofing only. I gave my phone up to my wife. We ended up hiring a sales coach and put a couple salesmen on, got them trained. Then I got a production manager, and next thing you know, we're booming, and it went nuts. For the next couple of years, we just grew. It just blew up. A lot of people asked me what the keys to my success was, and it was execution. And I'm sure you want to talk about some of that today.
Yeah, for sure. So 1984 through 2017, it was kind of status quo, right? I mean, keeping busy, getting a next job.
Where's my next job? I would estimate the job. I'd order the materials, sell the job, collect the money, make sure the customer was happy. I had a crew, maybe 1 to 5 guys, and I got in a truck every day and went out there and did it.
What revenue level were we at that, throughout that period?
2017, I think we were around 500,000 to 600,000.
And was that your best year up until that point, O'Leary, or?
Yeah, because we had done a little bit of roofing subs, but I was still doing siding and I was still installing in between. So that was about the best year up till then.
Safe to say 2016 and before that, you were a sub $500,000.
Oh yeah, 300. I think 2015. I don't know why, but 328. And you know what? I made a third of that because I was the installer, I was the owner, I was the salesman. I made $100,000. If you made $100,000 in 2015, 16, you were a king,
Yeah. You felt great. So in 2017, O'Leary, when you decided to change things, what was initial? What caused you to make that decision?
Well, I remember the day like it was yesterday. We were doing a hip roof in a big hip roof house, 2-story, 10 pitch in East Stroudsburg. I was with the roofing crew, and I was on the roof all day, and it was a 2-day job. It was getting dark. I'm standing by the tailgate, And my one main guy comes over and he looks at me. He says, "Are you okay?" And I put my tool belt down. I said, "I'm not coming back tomorrow." And he's like, "I don't understand, Mr. John. I don't understand." And I'm like, "No, I'm coming back, but I'm not getting up there. I'm never getting up there again." And I went home and promised my wife I'd never drive a nail for money again. And from that month, I might have finished some jobs up. But from that month, and I was talking to a guy last night about it, I have not driven a nail and charged a person for it since spring of 2018. And you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You can't keep jumping back in.
Mm-hmm. So for you, it was. It sounds like the impetus for making the transition and the transformation was just out of need, right? I mean, it was getting too much to be up on the roof, to
Absolutely.
be doing the installations, and just needed to find some other way forward.
Sure, and when you roof all day long, usually you can recover overnight, but I wasn't recovering overnight. I was getting up the next day, and I couldn't do a 2-day job. I couldn't be even a walkable ranch. I wasn't recovering as fast as I should be to be able to get back out there. We'd go do a window job, and we'd have to carry 20 windows in the house, and it would kill me. Well, we get the windows in the house. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to put them in.
It's funny how that happens the older we get. So, so in 2017, when you made the decision that you were going to work on the business, right, rather than in business, and people throw that phrase out there all the time. How old were you?
53.
53. So you were tired.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's not even. There isn't even I don't think there's words to describe, because I get stuff done. I get out there and I get stuff done. And the disc assessment, the personality is, I'm 98%, 96% D, and all the stuff before that, I just want to get stuff done. And new construction vinyl siding. We worked for a company for 22 years. I sided over 3,500 homes for them.
Yeah, so you've been working physically 35 to 40 years at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you count even working in the summers and stuff like that for your father, right, that you mentioned before you even graduated high school, right?
Yep.
But 35 years after high school, full time, takes a toll on its body. Hopefully, the younger guys here, they heed that warning. They don't realize that when they're young, but it does catch you when you get older. Yep.
And we didn't have a lot of the tools that they have today. So we didn't have equipters. It was only like 2010, 2005 that they started using drywall trucks to boom roof shingles on the roof. We carried all that. We did all that hard work. No equipters.
Up the ladder, right?
Yeah, no, we didn't have all that stuff. And we didn't even, my first couple of years in business, we didn't even use nail guns.
Yeah, you had
on shingles. We're talking the 80s, not,
Yep. Yeah, hand nails. So he's dating himself. Good, Jonathan.
So what was your mindset in 2017? Like, were you saying, like, obviously you needed a shift, but were you thinking like, I just want to continue to do $500,000-$600,000 a year and just not be the one driving the nails? Or were you starting to think a little bit differently?
I started to put a plan together because I had zero retirement saved. I had no money for retirement. I had some assets, not a lot of big assets. I had a few assets, but nothing that was going to help me get retired.
So at 50, you were mainly banking on Social Security at 67.
Exactly. If Social Security and maybe, a property that I might have had or something, selling it off. I didn't owe a lot of money on my house, so I knew I had some equity there. But there was no big retirement coming for me. And Sherry and I talked about it, and I made a 5-year plan that in 5 years I was going to have enough money in the bank to retire. And we made a plan, and it looked like about $1.5 million I needed to just retire, not to have like really crazy, financial freedom retirement, just to have enough. And we started on that plan in 2018.
$1.5 million in the bank to retire.
Yep. In 5 years.
In 5 years.
Free cash. Yep.
Free cash. Yeah.
10%. You take a 10% in the market.
Mm-hmm.
You're making $110,000 on that. You have your Social Security. and side jobs, maybe a rental property. You get yourself up to 150, 175 a year. That was a good income back then to think about back then.
Either way, you're still working, right? Side jobs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're living modestly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you made the decision at 53 years old that I'm gonna retire nicely. I'm gonna do things differently these next 5 years than the previous 35 years. Correct?
Right. And the plan was to have enough in 5 years, not necessarily retire in 5 years. It was to have enough because I still would have only been, 58, 59 years old.
Yeah. So what was the org chart of O'Leary Roofing? What did that org chart look like in 2017 when you made that decision?
It was Sherry and I.
Okay. And what seats were you sitting in? What seats was Sherry sitting in? Do you remember?
She said she quit her job as she worked on contracts with a natural organic food broker, working from home, and really enjoyed doing it. But she said she wanted to help me with the business, so she took the phone. And I remember the first week she had the phone, and I got a new phone number because that was taking up all my time. And she gave me the phone back and says, "I don't know what to say to people when they call, except John will call you back." So that was like the start of, all right, we need to figure out how we can overcome that because it wasn't helping me because I still had to call everybody back.
Was that in 2017 when Sherry stepped into the
spring of 18.
Spring of 18.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You made a decision you're going to run the business differently, and you brought your wife into it.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So we decided that we were gonna hire a salesperson because that was taking up a lot of my time. Every weekend I was running 5 leads a day. I was running appointments at night, and I was running the crew. So I was out on a job with the crew in the dump trailer, taking the garbage to the dump in the morning, and there wasn't a lot of selling going on during the week. So she had the phone, and we're like, well, I need somebody to sell. So we went to International Roofing Expo. Well, I went to this seminar, and there was a sales coach there, and he had this seminar, and he's talking about all these really cool things that you say to people when you go to their house, and I would take a wrinkled up brochure and a little notepad and sell a roof, but he had this system of selling. And I was like, well, that's really cool. So Sherry came into the room after it was over, and I says, I'm going to hire this guy. He's got a 1 hour free call, which was a big deal to me. And little did I know I was his first client on his own. And he was just as excited as me to call him as I was to talk, to him. We were both just excited to talk to each other. And I hired him, and I had a friend of mine that had just retired from the Secret Service. He's a profiler. So, and he wanted to sell roofs. I'll sell roofs for you. So we had the sales coach come out and, roll back a little bit. When I told Sherry how much it was going to cost, she says, you have to do everything this guy tells you. Everything he tells you, you have to do. Because you can't spend the money if you're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. So I get the guy a room over here at the resort, and I get my salesman over there, and he starts training us, and he gets this iPad out, and he had made a presentation for us to use in the house, and he's going through it, and I'm like, man, this is like, it's so elementary. I didn't believe it. I was like, this is so hokey, this thing. But see, Dwight, the salesman, he didn't know anything about roofing. Mm-hmm. So now we're educating the customers with this. Well, we didn't even have iPads. So we stopped at 4:00. I drove to Bethlehem, bought 3 iPads that night. And on the way home, when we got home, we hired Job Progress for a CRM, and not realizing, the issues that they were having. But the bottom line is we knew we needed a couple things. Mm-hmm. By 9:00 at night, I had them. The next morning, we had our iPads loaded with the presentation ready to go. So it was, like we said, that execution of things you have to execute, and getting into the mindset part. I've had conversations with the mindset guy about the knowing doing gap.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have a gap.
Let's
There's no gap.
So let's hold off on the knowing doing gap. I know Jonathan wanted to talk to you about that. He had mentioned before the podcast had started. So because I really want to go over the org chart and so it sounds like prior to 2017, it was just you and a couple of installers. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay, so you were answering the phones, you were doing all the sales, you were answering all the inquiries. Which marketing was probably, it sounds like it was just more repeat referral. You're probably running very
most of it. Yeah, there was no business cards. That's
you
it.
didn't have a big marketing team behind you, so you probably a couple of lettered trucks and stuff like that, vehicles, I would imagine. And it was just all referral based. And it was you going on the weekends, maybe occasionally on the week in an evening, on a weekday, selling your wares, writing out an estimate on a napkin, and there, take it or leave it. And it was probably.
It's funny because we joke about this, but back then it was like a handshake and a bag of money.
Yeah.
They were the good old days.
And it was just selling probably based on price, right?
Yep.
Just, hey, they're going to be the most affordable or attractive guy in the market, right? Correct?
Well, I never was the cheapest guy.
Uh-huh.
I always charged for what I did, and there was always money left over when we got done.
There was. Okay. So you figured that out early.
Yeah.
Okay. Most people, unfortunately, they don't.
Well,
you know this. Yeah.
There's a part to this right before we went to the International Roofing Expo. I went to a GAF seminar, and there was this guy doing a sales seminar. He's a really good friend of mine now. He actually left GAF, and now he started a roofing business in Connecticut, and I'm actually helping him. But he talked about selling value. This is spring of 18. Is how valuable are you? And we're certified GAF. We have a 25-year workmanship warranty. We've been in business 35 years. We're going to be there for you. And I was selling at $280 a square. And he challenged everybody in the room to go sell their value. Don't sell a roof. He compared us to carpet installers because carpet installers had a little metal box and a beat up van. And they were getting $8 a square foot more than we were. And we're on the roof risking our lives. So he got us, and I was all fired up. Sherry was with me on the way home. I was like, I'm raising my prices $100 a square this weekend. And I did on Saturday. I sold all 3 jobs.
So you were marketing, you were installing, or at this point you were supervising.
Yep.
You were selling on the weekends and occasionally in the evenings. You were doing everything.
Yeah.
And so you were essentially in all the seats, wearing all the hats. So when you made the decision, it sounds like Sherry became more of the admin, right? The answering the phones, right? So you immediately handed that off to your wife. And you went out, and it sounds like after that, you started to outsource the sales department.
And, the funny thing is, as soon as that guy sold his first job, I was like, I need another one of these guys. Because I had so many leads, I was still selling. And the funny thing is the light bulb went on, John, and I try to help coach this and train this. But when the first time I did that presentation, and I did everything that Chuck had told me to do, every single word, I followed it to a T, had it memorized. Those people watched that presentation like the first time they watched Star Wars. And they thanked me. They thanked me for educating them on the roof process and the warranties. And, light bulb went on. I hired my second guy, my second salesman. And then I knew that production was, so now I was selling jobs. We're selling 2 a day sometimes. Well, now I needed to do 2 a day. So I needed a production guy.
You needed to install 2 a day.
Yep. And now I had to get an install manager. And I did. And
that's the next seat that you gave up.
Hardest seat to give up.
Yeah. Why?
Because that was my thing. I was the installer.
I knew the answer to that question.
Yeah. But he was awesome. I mean, we left the company with 530 5-star reviews. That was him.
And it's the both of you, but Kowalska and O'Leary, you both came from the install side, right? So that's
production background. Yeah,
production background.
Exactly.
Interesting.
John, our stories are very similar. Actually, we both made a decision to run real businesses around the same time.
Yeah.
And had similar results, right, John?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, I'd love to just take a step back for a second. You were talking about how you essentially fired yourself, or not completely, but fired yourself from doing the sales, right? You brought a salesperson in to help you do that because that was consuming too much of your time, or you didn't have enough time to do it. But I'm wondering, did you do it just because you didn't want to do it anymore, or did you do it because you saw that as the way to scale and to do more?
I couldn't do it anymore. It was survival, Jonathan. It was, anybody can say what they want to, but it was 100% survival. I needed to know that I was going to be okay because I had watched my father, and this goes back to Thanksgiving of 2017. I was in West Virginia at my father's place, and I watched him walk to his shop through the window. And I looked at Sherry and I said, that's not going to be me. He was hunched over. He was limping. I was like, that's not going to be me. I got to stop. Because he was like 75 years old and he was still going.
And at what point did the light bulb go off? And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this for survival, but I can do more of this and I can be more successful and, more profitable and more wealthy and more, when did that light bulb go off where it switched from like survival to, oh, I can grow this thing and do something bigger?
I can actually become wealthy from doing this. Yeah.
There wasn't really like a motivation for money as much as there was a motivation to not fail. So as we grew, I just wanted to make the right decisions not to fail because I knew the chances of failing were way higher than the chances of succeeding to even get to my goal. And people don't believe it, but I never really counted the dollars. It was 5-star reviews. It was how many jobs did we do? Is anybody calling that's upset? I was more driven by that than I was by the dollars. And I didn't really learn about money until about 2020 to 2021. And, Brian started teaching us, about a different way to sell. And we sold on margin now instead of selling by price per square. And I was making money, and he looked at my P&L and he's like, this is nuts. You guys are doing great. But I didn't really know the nuts and bolts of it. I just knew that I had a good number on my product and we were selling it. And then once I learned about the money and I could put it together in a profit model, I started making adjustments to that to get to my goal.
Yeah, and when you talk about Brian, I think it's Kaskavalsian you're talking about there.
Yep.
And so that's really interesting. I feel like a lot of times people who are of the mindset of just don't fail never really get to the progress and success that you've had. But one thing that you're talking about is just caring about the customer and the customer experience. You have the 5-star reviews. And I think early on when you were talking about, you had too many leads, right? It's like, I need to get another sales guy because I can't run all these leads. I'm guessing that's really just based off of referrals and past customers that are calling you back because of that care that you're taking of the customer when you do the work. Am I right?
You're exactly right. And here's the way it was explained to me, because we were at dinner one night and there was this young guy sitting across the table from me. He says, I want to be just like you in 6 years. And Sean said to him, you can't be like him. Because for 35 years, I threw seeds in the field. Now these seeds are the biggest fruit trees that would ever grow. And that fruit is now falling down in the form of leads. Because I took such good care of those people over the 35 years in such a small area that my marketing spend was 2.1%. Well, 3.1% with 6.2 million in revenue. And I had a 78% referral rate. whether it was meaning when we say referral rate, we call it the free lead, the job sign, the truck sign, my neighbor told me, saw your name on Facebook, all the free stuff. So that was, really key, was taking care of those customers all those years. I paid the price. I went back. I fixed the caulk. I fixed the joint. I readjusted the window. I took care of those people all those years. And then it paid me back in those 6 years of growth with this business.
So you were customer focused rather than profit focused for
pretty much
many, many years.
Yeah, there was many times Sherry would find $20,000 checks wrinkled up in my pants pocket in the laundry.
Wow.
She'd be like, "What are you doing?" And you know what? I knew the people were happy because they wrote the check, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was done then.
So you mentioned that you kind of like I like to say, I think profit is extremely important for any business. I think
absolutely
the fuel that will help grow and sustain a business, right? So you kind of mentioned that you were taking care of the customer for many years, which I think most contractors typically do. But I find that most contractors that do that, they get themselves into trouble, right? Because they don't charge enough, right? And you had mentioned that you were always charging enough or more. You were always profitable, right? Was there any key lessons in? I mean, I doubt from day one, right out of high school, you were charging enough. Like, at what point in your career did you realize it was important to charge enough per square to make a good, honest living? Do you remember that? Like when the light bulb went off?
It's hard to say, but there was always two things in that equation. One was efficiency. I didn't waste anything. I didn't waste a half a tube of caulk on a window job, So that efficiency made me money. And I wasn't a jerk about it, but I was just efficient. I would save a half a sheet of plywood for the next job, where a lot of people throw it away. And all those $10 and $20 items, when you get busy and you start doing 4 roofs a day, they really add up. So the efficiency was there, but, I liked nice things, and I had nice things, but it wasn't like crazy things. I bought a set of nice wheels for my work truck. It wasn't like I had a $200,000 work truck. I had a base model with nice wheels. So, but it was that I liked nice things, but not crazy things. It wasn't like crazy. And, in old school, if you charged a lot more than everybody else, you would feel like you were conning somebody, like you were stealing from them. So there was a balance there, that it was okay to be the highest price, but you couldn't be like over the top.
So ultimately, would it be fair to say that got you through 53 years of your life, needing $1.5 million?
Sure, comfortably. But I didn't and in the beginning, when I set that goal, I had never put anything away for us or for me. I took care of everybody else, but I didn't take care of me. And that's one of the biggest things that I see the owners aren't doing, is they're not taking care of themselves. And I'm trademarking the phrase mama's money. That's what it is. It's mama's money. Once that money comes home, it doesn't go back.
Mama's money.
Yep. You gotta make sure that you have that. And that's money that never goes back in the business. It's just for you and your wife and your family to not need in the business anymore and not be stressed. Like in the wintertime. I never had a winter where I worried about money. I knew how much I needed to have in the bank to pay everybody if we didn't work. And I had it there.
So 2017, you're about 600,000, decide to make the change. At what point did you cross $1 million in revenue for the business?
So I'll give you the numbers. 2018, I did 800,000, subbing with a salesman and then a second salesman later in the year. And we also hired a girl to answer the phone. And we learned how to answer the phone by getting professional training. 2019 was about 1.7. 2020 was like 3.2. 22, 5.6. And 23 was somewhere around 5.8, maybe a little more.
5.8.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It ended up being about 6.1 when it was all hashed out.
Addbacks?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, that was the year of the exit.
Yeah, for 2023. You
Yeah,
exited
yep.
last 2024, so they trailing 12, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So what would you credit, or I guess there's a few things here, but maybe talk about the different things that you would credit getting from that 600-ish thousand to about the 1.7, I think you said in 2019. What were the biggest transformations and changes in terms of how you ran and operated the business?
One of them is being organized. And obviously we learned about the CRM and having your customers organized and then, garbage in, garbage out, right? So you had to make sure what you put in there when your salesman went out and he dispoed a job and sold, not sold, and then if it was sold, how much it was sold for, so you could gather some data so you knew like what was going on the back end. And I didn't learn about the P&L too much till about 2021. And the first thing I learned was it's an autopsy. So at the end of the year, you get your P&L, the year's over, and 2022 is probably the first year we started looking at it monthly to learn about the numbers. But the CRM was really cool to be able to put all that stuff in one place and super important to have. And then the sales system. You have to have a sales system. Everybody has to do it the same way. And I drove it down their throats. They all had it memorized. And my first two guys were not the right fit. They were bad hires. They were a friend and then another guy. It was a bad hire. I learned it really quickly. I hired 3 other guys right after them, blended them with those 2 guys. The original 2 guys got let go. Then I ended up with 5. As I hired these guys, I learned about personality assessments. And I started not hiring the wrong personality to start. And that was only like a small percentage of it, but at least I knew they had the personality to ask for money, when they went in the house. and not giving everything away, like one of my first guys did. So as we went on, the CRM, the sales system, using the iPad for the presentation, educating the customer, and making sure that everything we did, we could repeat it every single day, every single month. Super important that everything you do is repeatable to grow.
So I would love to go back to that knowing doing gap, right? Because I think this is where you started to put that together. And this really, we spoke about this back in November when we were, I met you down in Florida.
Yeah, yep.
And that stuck with me, right? That you were talking about the knowing doing gap. That really stuck with me. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, I know it's about execution. You talked about one day you just decided to do something, but talk about the knowing doing gap.
So there's 2 things that happened to me. I think it was 2021. I joined a mindset group and I started working through a program, and I had to do a couple things. One of the things I had to do was set a worthy goal. So I'm on this Zoom with all these young guys, older guys too, I guess, and they're all telling their worthy goals. And the worthy goal is like something that you probably can't reach, but you might be able to reach. You could reach it if that makes any sense. So these guys want their own plane. They want lake houses. They want yachts, $10 million houses. And my turn comes up. He says, John, what's your worthy goal? And I said, I want to get up every day like I'm on vacation. And he says he didn't say it, but he told me it was lame. I wish I had the recording. He said, no, man, you got to go back. You got to come up with something else. I said, no, I want a day off. I want a day where I have no responsibility. When I get up in the morning, I can decide what I want to do without any question. Because when you're on vacation, you get up and you go, wow, we're going to go to the tiki bar. We're going to go scuba diving. Or are we going to go on the Jeep tour? Or are we just going to sit in the bar all day by the pool? So that's vacation. So I wanted that at home. And come to find out, a couple of years later, that worthy goal has been very well respected in the group because it's mentioned quite often. So then the second thing was, he says, it's 10 years from now, and I meet you on the street, and we don't know each other. And I turn and look at you and ask you if you're happy with the last 10 years of your life. And I walk away. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks after he asked me, because I knew that today was day one of that 10 years. And I knew that I wasn't happy in what I was doing. And was I happy making money? Sure. Was I happy doing people's jobs and accomplishing everything I accomplished? Absolutely. 5-star reviews. I was changing. My salesmen were making $150,000, $200,000 a year. They're buying houses. I'm changing lives. I was happy with that. But I knew there was something missing to it all. And I started to do some research on figuring out what was going on in the industry with, companies being sold and what they were looking for. And the thing is the mindset work for me was hard because I thought it was all like, snake oil, like the guy with the horse and buggy selling, his cure-all, and I probably didn't do as much work as I should have. I went through the program twice, but now in the end, I see how valuable everything was that I didn't pay attention to. So,
you didn't read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, huh?
I got about a quarter of the way through it. Yeah. I got about a quarter of the way through it. So, but I was hearing the stories from everybody else on the Zoom every week, and I didn't want to be those guys. I didn't want to be them. I knew that there was something else that I wanted to be, and something else I wanted to do. And not for nothing, I put 40 years into it. That's a long time. But the mindset over, like, did I have the skill set to do everything I did? Absolutely not. But you know who did? The sales coach, the canvassing coach, the call center coach, my peers, John, they all had it. They all had the skill set. All I had to do was go to them and say, what should I do? And the knowing doing gap is, we all know how to lose weight, right? None of us are doing it. But when John would say, you need to do this, I would go execute it. And I think Brian Elias said, I'm not sure it was Brian Elias or Brian Gottlieb, that you can be wrong, but don't be wrong for long. Scott Berman says that they all say that they were the first one to say it, but the bottom line is you can be wrong, but don't be wrong for long. And I would say, make a decision. And if it goes bad, quickly make another one to fix it. You have to make decisions and you have to change things. In my 6-year journey, I might have messed up a couple times, but it got fixed. Like, I went and found help. I found the guys that were doing it. We went to Aries Roofing, spent 2 days in his office. They shared they gave us everything. Anything we wanted, they helped us with. So in turn, when we were done, I'm like, Harry, what can I do for you? You're helping me. This is spring of 18. What can I do to help you or anything? He says, just give back. So through my growth, I had companies come to my office and see how I was doing it to help them grow. But that knowing doing gap is Sean will tell you that there is no gap with me.
You're talking about Sean Foyer.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Definitely. And there's a special place for mindset work. If your head isn't in it, you shouldn't spend the money and do it. You have to do the work. I didn't do all the work. Sherry has been to Tony Robbins seminars and she's into a lot of that stuff. The vision board, and all that, which is fine. I believe in it now because we're creating new vision boards now because all of our visions have come true.
It's incredible. I think Brian Kay always mentions, he says all the time, it's, 90% mindset, 10% skill set, right? It's just, it starts with a decision. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
all the time. 2019 for me, it was around the same time you'd made the decision. Jonathan and I were at the first Accelerate, and I'd been in the business at that point for 25 years, and I'd seen all these people, on the stage speaking in at the event, in the crowd, sitting down, having breakfast with them, successful people, and while they were impressive, it was just like they were really not much different than myself. And I think I'd realized there, like, wow, this it's possible to become wealthy in this business. Before that, I never thought it was possible. I thought, you just live a modest life. And Jonathan remembers we went back home and we developed a plan just like you, and we immediately, we implemented right away. And if we did something wrong, we pivoted and we readjusted, and eventually we figured some things out, right? But it starts with a decision. It's the mindset, right? Can't tell you how many people that I've met in life where they're just stuck at that 300,000 to 500,000, top line revenue mark. And most of the time it's because of their mindset, because they can't think any bigger, right?
Yeah.
They could never imagine having 5 jobs running every single day. Could never imagine having 3 or 4 or 5 sales guys, and, having people working along with them where they're not the center of everything, answering the phone call, writing the estimates. It's to me, it's exactly like Brian said. It's mindset, making a decision. You agree?
And the thing is like we were in the mastermind meeting. I don't know if you remember the meeting. It was before LeadCon 2 years ago, and me and the operations manager, our hot seat item was the marketing, because I knew if I was going to go north of 6, I needed marketing. Well, I'm not a marketer,
Mm-hmm.
We had a call center girl posting on Facebook and boosting the post. That was our marketing. We had a website company doing some PPC for us, so we were testing it out. So the determination at that meeting was, and keep in mind, LeadCon was like 4 weeks away, was that I hire a marketing manager. So what happened at the LeadCon? Who was with me? My marketing manager.
Yeah, you hired a marketing manager.
And we started to grow more right after I hired her. She knew how to do the job at market. She was young and she didn't have a lot of experience. But when we were leaving LeadCon, we were in the airport. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. I'm like, how's it going? What'd you think of the event? And she's like, I have a whole new outlook of marketing, that it's data driven and not fancy postcards and ads.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because that event, the professionals, the training, the coaching that she got at that event was life-changing for her, to know how much I still know what a contract cost me, $368. I know how much my Angie's List cost me to sell a job. And the reason I knew it wasn't because I knew how to do it. She learned how to do it and provided it to me. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of books out there and stuff, but there was one that I don't remember the name, but it talked about your inner circle. And us as owners think we're the best. We know everything. And nobody's better than us. Nobody can run a job better than us. I never believed anybody could sell a roof for me. But your inner circle has to be better than you. Every single person in that inner circle, they have to be a better marketing person. But the thing is not only do they have to be better, you have to believe that they're better. They can be better and you don't believe they're better, and it'll hold you back.
That goes back to the org chart, right?
Exactly.
Your strengths and weaknesses, and hiring out the weaknesses first, right? Hiring good people, like the marketing manager, right? I mean, you had just mentioned you weren't you didn't really spend much time or much effort on marketing until you decided, again, you made a decision, you wanted to go north of 6 million, right?
Yeah.
You knew I in order to do that, I have to hire somebody with those skills. And you made that decision, and 4 weeks later,
we were moving.
Yeah.
And the operations manager was a big one too, because I had a real nice office there, and everything. And I enjoyed going down there and being around everybody and everything. But I've learned really quickly how I was in everybody's way.
Isn't that funny how the larger you grow, right? And the more you give away to other people, you almost feel like you don't want to get in there and mess things up. I've heard other people allude to that too. I think Brian Kay had mentioned that, where it's just like you just get involved and you're like, okay, these people are, I shouldn't probably be here in this meeting. Or
exactly. I shouldn't have said that. Luckily, I had Sherry who would kick me under the table because she knew what I was going to say when somebody would say something. And she'd kick me under the table and then I wouldn't say it.
I have people ask questions and I'm like, I don't know. Ask a question about the business and I'll say, I don't know, but you're going to have to go to, Tom for that, right? Tom handles that now. It's incredible.
And I'll tell you, John, one of the most emotional days of this whole business, I had hired Jonathan, the operations manager. It was probably about 3 to 4 months in. I don't know exactly how long, but we were sharing my office. But he had the desk. I had a chair. I was on the other side of the desk. He had the computer. He had the desk. And that day, I packed up all my personal stuff in a cardboard box and took it home.
And you went home.
And I didn't have a chair at the office anymore. Mm-hmm. And it was weird because it really was like being fired. But the truth of it is I had crossed a bridge that was like crazy freedom to not know things about the business that he was taking care of.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy to get to that point. Everybody says, well, I only go to the office 1 day a week. Yeah, well, that's a lie. Anybody tells you that, that's a lie. We were running EOS, so I was at the office for the EOS meeting. I would drop in on the department meetings, for EOS, just to help out, try to solve some problems a little bit quicker. But then again, I was in their way. I shouldn't have been there, But as the visionary, that you're the guy who goes in and say, we're going to do this, this, and this. Then you leave, and it's up to the integrator to say, well, we're only going to do one of those.
And they have to figure it out.
Right. So that day, that packing up that stuff and leaving, we had 11 employees in the office, I think. And I think we had 3 in the field, 3 or 4 in the field. And, we had a sales coordinator, we had a production coordinator, we were dabbling in a sales manager, we had the salesman, we had an office admin. So we were pretty good. We were lean, but we still had the bases covered for what we were doing.
So one thing that I'm curious about, right, through all that growth, through, getting out of the way of all of those different things, how did you not lose the essence and personality of the business that made it special? 'Cause, right, that started with you, and that started with you making sure that the customers were taken care of, and being the one overseeing the production, especially. So what did you do to make sure that as you were stepping out of these different spots, that still continued?
Well, one thing everybody knew was that if there was a problem with a customer, we shut down production. Like I would cancel the installs for the next day, even if it was a simple question they had. If it wasn't being taken care of, the crew had to go back. And everybody knew that top priority was making sure the customers were happy. They knew that I wasn't, we were, it wasn't that we threw money around the office like it was nothing, but we had a kitchen that was fully stocked for everybody. Anytime anybody needed anything, we helped them out. So they knew that it wasn't like I was greedy or I was not sharing the wealth. And, but they also knew that the customers had to get taken care of. And if you had sat on a red ticket a little too long, or a customer called with an issue and the message didn't get through the way it was supposed to, they knew that was going to bother me more than not finishing a job on a Friday. I didn't care if the job got done. I knew it would get done. I was that guy. I knew that stuff happened and you couldn't get jobs done because of certain circumstances. But the thing is the culture was the customer was first, always. And when you do that, the money will come. It's funny how it just follows it, The money just comes. You take care of your customers, the money will come.
He set that standard. He established that culture.
Yeah. So it's the culture.
Even after he stepped out, it continued. I remember the red tickets. What was the story behind the red tickets, John? What did you do differently? How did the red tickets come about? I remember you telling me the story about that briefly, and I was very impressed about the red ticket. Go ahead.
So we didn't have a lot of service calls. We might get one call a week, and we were doing up to 4 jobs a day. So I felt our ratio. But what I learned was when I was doing 2 roofs a week, I didn't have any. We had 0. So what happened was then we started doing a roof a day. Well, then we started getting one every 2 weeks or so. So what happens is the ratio of jobs you do to red tickets or service calls works against you. As you get busier, you'll get more. It just that's the percentages. So, Mike took care of them all the time. But the thing is I never really knew like what they were, what was happening. So we got a pack of red paper and we printed them, the service ticket. It was a form that we printed. When the intake call came in, the call center would print this red ticket, would fill it out, and it would go on Mike's desk. And it would also go in the EOS stats. And Mike left them on his desk. So I knew when I walked by, if there was red tickets there, I would always pick them up and look at them. Because I wanted to know what was going on. And I didn't like them. It bothered me. Because that red ticket meant that somebody wasn't happy somewhere. And most of the times, I think 70% of our red tickets were unfounded. It was something else. They blame everything on the roofer. So it wasn't our fault. It was something else going on. So, they say we moved their gas grill, now their propane's empty. That's our fault, You
touch it, you own it.
You touch it. You go to that job, I got stories about service tickets that you wouldn't believe. So what we did is we actually put the way we handle service in the sales process. So when we would get to the end, we present price and, maybe the people didn't like the price. We'd say, well, did the other companies explain to you what their service process is in the event, just in case something happens? How they handle it? Well, this is how we handle it.
Here it is, yeah.
The call comes in. Within 24 hours, the production manager will call you back. And within 7 days, you'll be satisfied with the outcome. And if you're not, you'll hear from the owner. The other company didn't tell you how they handle service calls? Well, that's how we handle it. So sometimes they went a little bit longer, but we would know it in our leadership meeting on EOS because it was one of our things. How many service tickets came in? How many were over 7 days and how many were over 30 days?
He tracked it, yeah.
Because some of them were like the supplier ran over the sidewalk and cracked it. Well, it's still on us, but that could go over 7 days to get it fixed, So we had the over 30 days and he'd have to bring them to the meeting and review them. And nobody was really doing anything wrong, but it was always watched. That service was always watched. And it actually was a number that was reported with revenue and closing rate and how many leads were issued. So we had this list of things that we tracked in our EOS meeting.
And that was one of them.
And if there was a service ticket that was a problem, we dropped it down to a to-do. Mm-hmm. And somebody, then we had to take care of it, get it fixed.
Yep. You identified, discussed it, solved it. Yep.
Yeah, yep.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
And even that was hard for me, John. Both of you. Running EOS. That was hard.
Yeah.
Because the personality of us as owners, structure doesn't always fit well with us. Because our whole lives are what? Controlled chaos. So then this guy comes in or this woman comes in every quarter and wants you to structure everything. You have to structure your issues every week. And if I had an issue, I couldn't go in and tell Jonathan I had an issue on Monday. I had to put it on the issues list, and we didn't get to see it till Tuesday. And then if it didn't get voted as one of the top issues, it might not have gotten taken care of on Tuesday. So, and a lot of that's hard to take,
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a couple of key aspects here that were really, important as you transitioned the business and started to scale the business. EOS certainly helped. EOS is a set of processes, right? You don't necessarily have to follow every set of processes to a T. Like if you wanted to adjust that a little bit in terms of escalating issues, I'm sure that you could have. But, two things that EOS, has as part of its framework is, the values and process, right? And both of those things, it sounds like, are what were really enabled you to step back and take a step out and know that, hey, this business is going to continue to run, and it's going to run efficiently, and it's going to run, just as well as, or if not better, as if I were still up on the roof taking care of these things and working directly with the customer, right? So those are two, these systems and processes, even though sometimes they feel a little bit, I don't know, just not hard to implement or not good enough at first, but that's what really allows you to scale and also to step back and work on things, not in things. Right. So, I think that's really interesting as far as how you were able to keep the personality and success of O'Leary Roofing and maintain that without doing everything every day.
Yeah. Not many, contractors, I got to say, with Mr. O'Leary here. And, I know John, I think we met around 2018, 2019 when you and I both started our journey, right? And not many contractors go from, banging nails on a roof at 53 years old to comfortably retired 5 years later. Unfortunately, most of those guys at that age, 53, they continue to keep banging those nails until till well after they should be retired. I mean, but you had made the decision, John. So you have a very rare story. Not many people do or accomplish what you accomplished in those few short years, those 5 years, and you made the plan and you'd actually accomplished it. So you sold the company to private equity in 2024, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you want to just quickly go over what that process was like and what the win was like? You don't have to share dollar amount or anything like that, but
Sure.
Yep.
So here's the deal. In June of 2024, I got an email. Would you like to sell your roofing business?
2023.
2023.
So
2023. So here's the deal. Everybody gets those. You probably get those. Jonathan probably gets those.
I have 5 of them in my email inbox right now. As a matter of fact, the same company that emailed you is emailing me right now.
So here's the deal. Who answers those emails? Like nobody. So I answered it. In the first one that I answered, they wanted 10 million and 10%. I wasn't even close to that. I was only half of that.
They wanted 10 million top line and
10% profit, net profit.
Yep.
I had the net profit, but I didn't have the 10 million. And I returned the email, and they talked to me, and the guy says, "Hey, I got this friend who might be interested. Can I forward your information?" I said, "Sure." About a week went by, and they contacted me, and I took the first meeting with them, and I laid it out for them. I said, "Here's the number." Before I did that, I was working with another group of professionals, the Freedom family, Noah Rosenfarb and his group, and we figured out what my number needed to be.
So you knew.
And I knew my number, and I knew how much I had in the bank. I had saved a lot of money, and I knew, over the growth of the 5 years, I was working on that 1.5 million, which I had gotten to. So we came up with a number. What did it look like? And it's funny. If you went home today, John Kabalska, and you said to your wife, "I want $500,000 a year in income," she'll say, "We don't need that much money." Right? That's what happened to me. We've never made that much money, so why would we need it in the future? So my number was higher than what, Sherry thought we needed. But I wanted to make sure that if things changed over the years, we were still going to be good, that number was going to be good 10 years from now. Because that was a fixed number. We're on fixed income unless we go get a job or change our rental properties. So Noah and his team helped us with the number, and that's the number I gave them on the first Zoom. And they were like, so the story, I was in South Carolina at the house with the whole family. First time all the kids, grandkids, everybody was there. And I'm on the porch, and the cardinals were chirping out on the fence. There was like 100 of them there. And the guy says, what's that sound in the background? And I turned the laptop around. I showed him the pool and the hot tub, the lake, and I said, there's about 100 cardinals in the bushes there. And I'm like distracted, because you don't see that where I am. He's like, well, where are you? I saw him at our lake house in South Carolina for 2 weeks with the family. He's like, well, who's running the company? I said, well, if you want to talk about the company now, we're going to talk about checking the boxes off. John and Sherry don't need to be there. My net profit is X. I have over 500 5-star reviews. I had checked every box off in 2 years that you needed to check off to sell your business to private equity, except one. And I told my salesmen aren't W-2s yet, and I'm not changing them over. You have to do it. And here's my number. Well, about 2 months went by. I didn't hear anything. And then I got an email that says, do you want to sell this company? Well, I didn't know that I was supposed to check with them. I was supposed to get back to them. But I missed that in the conversation, So I was like, yeah, sure, if that's the number. And we signed a, non-disclosure, non-compete, because they didn't want me going to any other companies while they were spending money. They claimed they spent $500,000 on due diligence, and they dug deep because they didn't believe my net profit. And when we were at the November meeting and Brian asked us all to renew, 5 minutes after he passed those papers out, I got a text message from my attorney. We had a letter of intent.
An LOI.
That was at the November meeting. We had a closing date of November 24th. And it got pushed to December 15th for whatever reason. And we closed on December 15th.
Oh, so you closed within 60 days?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you closed pretty quickly.
It was supposed to be faster, but there was just some things they wanted to work out.
Oh, so they did due diligence before your LOI?
They did it from the end of July to the letter of intent.
Okay.
So they put you under a non-compete so that you're not, they don't want to spend all that money and then you sell your company to somebody else.
Sure.
And they were fair. They had a great team. Nobody ever likes the lawyers. We didn't like their lawyers. They seemed to be out of touch of what was going on in the big picture. They didn't really want to pay the number because it was more than what the market was paying. So we made a deal. And in the end, they ended up paying more than my number.
Incredible. So you went from banging nails on a roof 5 years prior to that, 6 years prior to that, to holding all the leverage against private equity and getting them to pay you more than they were comfortable with and retiring comfortably, huh?
It's baffling.
Amazing story.
It's baffling.
John, wrap it up. Do you have any more questions?
No, it's an awesome story. The knowing doing gap always resonated so much with me, right? I think both of you, Kowalska and O'Leary, that's been both of your strengths, right? That's allowed you to really execute and get to where you're at. I love the process and culture stuff as well. I mean, there's just so much really good advice for listeners. It's just, it's a great story. It's, the thing is, when you say it and you talk about it, it almost sounds easy. Like, okay, well, why didn't I do this before? But it's anything but, right? It's just, it's anything but. But the biggest thing that I can say out of all of this is just, get out there and learn. Listen to, get the resources, listen to this podcast, listen to other podcasts, get some books. Go to events, go to Accelerate, go to LeadCon, go to Top Rep, right? Go to these different events, meet people, network, learn as much as you can from others who have done it, right? Because there's others who have done it. Both of you are examples of that. And it's just inspiring to hear the stories and learn how to actually execute that. So yeah, I don't have any other questions. I think this was awesome.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
I could give my email address or my phone number, can text me. That's the best way. Text me first, then a phone call. I truly want to give back to the industry. I am working with Brian and as a coach and facilitator with the Wealthy Contractor Success Society. I am a true believer that you need to go to meetings with your peers. I don't have a lot of friends here, but I have friends around the country that I can call and talk to just about anything. Just recently, I went to a company. I got to tell you that story, John K. But I just went to a company and spent the day there and really had a great time just hanging out, you know. And I've been confined to home for, this is almost 6 weeks now with a knee replacement. I'm bored out of my mind. But I've been talking to some owners. You know, I've been reaching out, see how they're doing, you know, and even people from the Wealthy Contractor Group I've been talking to and sharing some of the experiences that we've had. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. Jonathan, I've done a little more research on your stuff that you do with your CRM and it sounds like you got a really good thing there. I wish I had it when I started, because our first CRM didn't have good reporting. And we didn't know that. It was basically an address book. And so until we got a CRM that had good reporting, it sucked. So I appreciate what you're doing and keeping up with the times.
Yeah, appreciate that. No, I love working with the community and home improvement contractors in general. So it's a privilege to be able to participate and help. I appreciate
You're going to get to see each other in less than 2 weeks there at the event in Florida, northern Florida there this year. So looking forward to it. Let's wrap it up here. Thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully you got something out of it. As Brian says, success leaves clues. Listen to John's story, my story, and the others, and you'll notice some patterns. So thank you everybody for sitting with us today. Until next time, take care.
Take care, guys.
Take care, everybody.